My name is Chloe, and at 35, I pride myself on being meticulous and organized. As an auditor for a large company, my keen eye for details serves me well, both professionally and personally. My friends often tease me about my enthusiasm for the organization, especially when it comes to financial matters like saving receipts and timely tax payments. But for me, these habits are essential for maintaining order in my life. Now, let me share the story of how I met my husband, Theodore. It was at a gathering hosted by our mutual friend, Victoria. That evening, as I enjoyed some wine and conversation with college friends, Theodore arrived. He was slightly older, exuding confidence and sporting a charismatic smile. He worked as a manager at a food sales company. "Hey, I'm Theodore. Do you mind if I join you?" he asked, beer in hand and eyes meeting mine. "Sure, I'm Chloe. Nice to meet you," I responded with a smile. We hit it off immediately, finding common ground in our love for hiking and classic rock. A few months into our relationship, Theodore invited me to a barbecue at his sister Audrey's place. It was my first time meeting his family, and although Audrey welcomed us warmly, her kids were quite the handful, running around, screaming and tossing toys. Despite my discomfort with the chaos, Theodore seemed unbothered, amused by their energy. As our relationship deepened, Theodore proposed during a picturesque hike. It was a simple yet perfect moment atop a hill with a stunning valley view. Our wedding followed, beautiful but not without its challenges, particularly Audrey's kids, who were as unruly as ever. Theodore found their antics amusing, while I struggled with my frustration quietly. After marrying, Theodore and I decided it was time to buy our own home, moving from our rented apartment. One evening, we sat down to discuss our finances, eager to start this exciting new chapter together. With our combined love for organization and adventure, I felt hopeful about our future, despite the occasional challenges his family might bring. As Theodore and I settled into the reality of buying a new home together, we found ourselves navigating the practical aspects of merging our lives more fully. "Chloe, we need to figure out how to divide the expenses," Theodore said one evening, reclining on the couch in our current place. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too," I replied thoughtfully. "I can take care of purchasing the furniture, appliances, and a few art pieces to decorate. What about you?" Theodore, ever the surprise giver, had a different kind of proposal. "How about I buy you a new car? I know your old one has been a hassle," he offered, with a considerate smile. The idea delighted me. My car was on its last legs, and the thought of a reliable replacement was more than welcome. We jumped into house hunting with enthusiasm and, after several weeks, fell in love with a charming, albeit slightly expensive, house. We decided it was worth the investment. Moving in was chaotic, but decorating our new space was an exciting endeavor for me. I dedicated many hours to selecting stylish, high-quality furniture and appliances. Not long after settling in, Theodore surprised me with a sleek, shiny new sedan. "Theodore, this is incredible." "Thank you so much," I exclaimed, overwhelmed with gratitude as I hugged him. Life in our new home started wonderfully. We both thrived in our jobs and cherished our time in the cozy environment we had created. However, not everything was perfect. Theodore's laid-back attitude, which I had once found endearing, began to irritate me, especially regarding household responsibilities. One evening, after a long day, I asked him to help with the dishes. Chloe, I had a rough day." "Can it wait until tomorrow?" he responded, his eyes pleading for leniency. But I insisted on maintaining our home's cleanliness, and reluctantly, he agreed to help. A few months into our marriage, I began to worry about not being able to get pregnant. It was an added stressor, and despite the doctors advising patience, it was hard not to feel anxious. To complicate matters, Theodore's sister, Audrey, who lived in a neighboring state, visited often, bringing chaos with her. Whenever she was over, she would unload her marital problems on me nonstop. "Chloe, you won't believe what David did this time," she would start, her frustration palpable. I tried to change the subject, hoping for a break from the constant drama, but Audrey insisted on venting. Her kids were just as disruptive. Their visits turned our home into a circus, running around, fighting, and being generally loud. After a tough work week, all I wanted was some peace, but that seemed impossible with the chaos they brought. Guys, please calm down, I would plead, trying to restore some order. Why are you always so uptight, Chloe? Audrey would snap back, adding to the tension. Amid these challenges, Theodore and I continued to navigate our life together, balancing the joys of our new home with the complexities of family dynamics and personal hopes. Despite the occasional strains, our foundation was strong, built on love, shared dreams, and an ever-deepening commitment to each other. Each time I tried to get Audrey's children to behave, I would plead, "They're making a mess, Audrey. I just cleaned the house." But my patience was thinning. One day, when I expressed my frustration, Audrey retorted sharply, "Well, maybe if you had your kids, you'd understand." Her words struck me deeply, not only because they were harsh, but because she knew of my struggles with fertility. It felt like a direct attack, and I was astounded that Theodore stood by silently. "Theodore, are you going to let her speak to me like this?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. To my dismay, Theodore dismissed my concerns. "Chloe, calm down. You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, taking Audrey's side again. "It's not nothing. She insulted me in our home," I exclaimed, tears starting to form. I was at my breaking point, tired of being disrespected in my own home and having my husband continually side with his sister. I knew something needed to change. On Saturday, Audrey arrived unexpectedly with her kids in tow, declaring she needed a break and was going shopping. "Fine, Audrey, but make it quick," I said, the stress evident in my tone. She thanked me and rushed out, leaving me with the kids and a growing sense of dread. I was in the kitchen trying to prepare dinner, a task I prefer to do meticulously, but with the kids causing chaos, concentrating was impossible. They were yelling, running around, and generally wreaking havoc. "Can you guys keep it down?" I called out from the kitchen, hoping for a moment of peace. They ignored me, and soon after, a loud crash from the living room sent me racing in. There, amidst the debris, lay my grandfather's shattered antique Chinese vase. My heart sank as I surveyed the damage. "What the hell happened here?" I demanded, my voice shaking as I looked at the kids who now stood still, guilt written all over their faces. "We were just playing," one mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "This vase is priceless. It belonged to my grandfather. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I was livid, my whole body trembling with anger. Just then, Theodore walked in, his demeanor calm and clueless. "What's going on?" he asked. I pointed to the shattered vase. "Your nephews just broke my grandfather's vase. Look at this mess." Theodore's response only inflamed the situation. "Calm down, Chloe. It's just a vase. We can get it fixed," he said, dismissing my feelings. "It's not just about the vase, Theodore. It's about respect. I'm tired of this. Every time Audrey comes over, our house turns into a disaster zone, and you don't seem to care," I shouted, my voice cracking with frustration. Audrey walked in at that moment, shopping bags in hand, and looked annoyed by the commotion. "What's all this yelling about?" she asked. I pointed to the remnants of the vase on the floor. "Your kids broke my grandfather's vase, Audrey. Look at this mess." Instead of apologizing, she retorted, "Well, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them, Chloe. Are you kidding me? They're your children, Audrey." "I shouldn't have to watch them," I replied, my anger peaking. Theodore just shook his head, looking annoyed. "You're overreacting, Chloe. Just drop it," he said. I was fed up. Overreacting? I've had enough of this. "I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home," I said, finally standing up for myself, determined to make a change. The disrespect had become too much to bear, and I knew that for the sake of my dignity and happiness, something had to give. Tears spilled over as I shouted, with Theodore just standing there, silent and impassive, while Audrey had a smirk that seemed to declare a victory. Overwhelmed by a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal, I stormed out of the room. Dealing with the chaos of Audrey and her kids' visits had been exhausting for months, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. One morning, As Theodore sat casually munching on his toast at the kitchen table, he dropped a bombshell as nonchalantly as if he was commenting on the weather. Chloe, I need to tell you something. Audrey's getting divorced and she's moving in with us with the kids for a few months, he said. I nearly dropped my coffee. Are you serious? Our house is already a madhouse when they visit for a day. How are we supposed to handle them living here for months? I questioned in disbelief. She's my sister, Chloe. She needs our help. You need to be more understanding, he replied, his look suggesting that I was being unreasonable. Understanding? I had been nothing but accommodating, but this was too much. Why can't we rent a place for her nearby? I'll even pay for the first month's rent, I suggested, trying to maintain my composure. No, she'll be better off here. Plus, you can help with the kids and keep things clean, he stated as if it were the most obvious solution. I'm not a babysitter, Theodore. I work too, and I need to relax when I get home, I argued, my frustration mounting. Stop being so selfish, Chloe. It's family, they need us, he countered, his tone growing sharper. I'm not being selfish, Theodore. I'm just asking for a reasonable solution. I'm not going to let my life be turned upside down, I retorted, feeling my anger rise. Well, they're coming tomorrow evening, so you better get used to the idea, he declared, standing up and leaving the kitchen. I was blindsided and felt utterly betrayed. The next morning, still fuming from our argument, I dressed for work and went to grab my car keys, but they were nowhere to be found. When I called Theodore, his voice was unnervingly calm. I took the car. It's mine, remember? I'm giving it to Audrey so she can use it for the kids, he informed me. You're giving my car to Audrey? Are you serious right now? I was stunned. It's not your car, Chloe. I paid for it, and she needs it more than you do, he replied, matter-of-factly. That was the last straw. Theodore, you've taken everything from me, and I'm done, I said, my voice shaking with anger. What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Chloe, he dismissed, clearly not grasping the depth of my feelings. Standing in the hallway, holding my phone, it felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How had things gotten so bad? Determined, I called a moving company. Hi, I need a team to move some furniture and appliances today. It's urgent, I requested. The movers arrived a few hours later, and I directed them around the house, pointing out the items to be moved. Take everything, beds, sofas, chandeliers, even the faucets in the bathroom. As the house began to empty, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Watching each piece being carried out, I directed the movers to my mother's house, ready to start anew, free from the turmoil that had taken over my life. With the house now emptied, I gave the movers a tip, thanking them for their prompt work. I gathered my essentials and headed to my mom's place. Within a few hours, my phone started buzzing incessantly. It was Theodore calling, but I ignored the calls, feeling a mix of anxiety and newfound empowerment. That evening, there was a loud knock at my mom's door. I opened it to find Theodore standing there, his expression furious. What the hell, Chloe? What did you do? He yelled as he barged into the living room. I took my belongings, Theodore. You took the car, so I took what I bought, I replied, maintaining my composure. This is insane. You stripped the house bare. Where are Audrey and the kids supposed to sleep? He shouted, his face flushed with anger. That's your problem, Theodore. You made this mess. Now you deal with it, I retorted, my arms crossed. You're a thief, Chloe. You stole everything, he accused, gesticulating wildly. I didn't steal anything. Here are the receipts, I said calmly, pulling out a folder and showing him proof of purchase for all the furniture and appliances. He flipped through the receipts, his anger turning to frustration. Fine, Chloe. If this is how you want to play it, I'll file for divorce, he declared. I took a deep breath and handed him a stack of papers. Already done. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them, and we're done, I stated. He looked at the papers, his face turning pale. You're really serious about this, aren't you? Dead serious, Theodore. I deserve better than this, I affirmed, feeling an unusual sense of calm wash over me. He took a pen from his pocket, signed the papers without another word, and handed them back to me. Fine, Chloe. Have it your way. I watched as he turned and walked out of my mom's house, the door slamming behind him. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It was over, and deep down, I knew it was the right decision. That night, I sat down with my mom and recounted everything that had happened. She was incredibly supportive and agreed that I had made the right choice. "Chloe, you've been through a lot. It's time you focused on yourself and your happiness," she said, giving me a comforting hug. "Thanks, Mom. I just need some time to figure things out," I replied, feeling a significant weight lifted off my shoulders. Over the next few days, I began settling into a new routine, organizing my new space at my mom's house and planning my next steps. It was a fresh start, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head-on. I had reclaimed my life, and there was no turning back. After the divorce, Theodore and I sold our house and split the proceeds. I decided it was time to find my own space. One afternoon, while sitting in the kitchen with my mom, I scrolled through apartment listings on my laptop. "Mom, I think I found a place that looks perfect. It's a small apartment downtown, close to work," I said, showing her the pictures. She leaned over my shoulder and smiled. "That looks nice, Chloe. Have you called the realtor yet?" "Not yet," I replied, ready to take the next step in building my new life. "All right, I'm doing this now," I said to myself, a flutter of excitement in my stomach. I picked up my phone, dialed the number, and waited eagerly for the realtor to answer. After a few rings, a warm voice greeted me. "Hello, this is Ethan. How may I assist you today?" "Hi, Ethan. My name is Chloe. I saw your listing for the downtown apartment. Is it still available?" I asked, my fingers crossed under the table. "Yes, it's still on the market. Would you like to come see it?" Ethan's voice carried a hint of hope. "That would be perfect. How about tomorrow afternoon?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "That works for me." "Let's meet at 4 p.m., Ethan confirmed. We ended the call, and the next day I was downtown, ready to meet Ethan and see the apartment. He was standing outside the building, his smile welcoming. "Hi, Chloe. Great to meet you. Let's take a tour," he said, offering a handshake. The apartment was charming, compact yet inviting, with a neat kitchen, a generous living room, and a small balcony that offered a pretty view of the city skyline. "This place is ideal, Ethan." "I'll take it," I declared, a wave of relief washing over me. After signing the lease and collecting the keys, I began planning my move. The next few days were a whirlwind of packing at my mom's house and coordinating with movers for the heavy lifting. On a moving day, my mom and a few friends were there to help. As we loaded the last box into the truck, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves about starting anew. "Chloe, this is a wonderful new beginning for you," my mom said, giving me a comforting hug. "Thanks, Mom. I'm looking forward to making this place my own," I replied with a smile. We drove to my new apartment and, with everyone's help, had everything unpacked and arranged quickly. As I looked around my new home, I felt proud and content. It was the start of something new, and I was ready. That evening, to celebrate, I invited my mom and friends over for dinner. We sat on the floor amid boxes, eating pizza and laughing. To Chloe and her new adventure, my friend Victoria toasted, lifting her soda. "Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate all the support," I said, grateful for their help. As the night progressed, we shared stories and laughed, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely happy. Later, sitting on my balcony and looking out at the city lights, I reflected on my journey and how far I'd come. I was proud of myself for taking the reins of my life. I had heard through friends that Theodore, my former boyfriend, had bought a small apartment with his share of our mutual funds. He was now living there with Audrey and her 3 kids, working 3 jobs to keep up with expenses while they struggled with constant disagreements. One day, unexpectedly, Theodore called. Seeing his name flash on my phone screen surprised me, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Theodore. What's up?" I asked, my tone neutral. "Chloe, please, just hear me out," he began, his voice desperate. "I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry for everything. As I listened, I realized how much I had grown and how different my life was now, filled with new beginnings and positive steps forward. I hadn't grasped the extent of your struggles until now. Observing Audrey's kids, I couldn't help but chuckle slightly. Really, Theodore? It's taken you this long to realize? I asked incredulously. I know it's late, but I'm sincere. I've spent a lot of time reflecting, and I miss you. I miss us. Can we start fresh? I'm willing to move into your place and set things right, he explained, his voice filled with earnestness. I laughed, shaking my head in disbelief. Theodore, you can't be serious. You think you can just stroll back into my life, as if nothing ever happened? Chloe, I mean it. I'll do anything it takes, even pick up extra work to make amends, he continued, desperation creeping into his tone. Theodore, I've moved on. I'm content now, and I'm not looking to revisit that turmoil, I responded firmly. Come on, Chloe.
We can make it work this time.
I've changed, he persisted. I sighed, feeling both pity and irritation. Theodore, it's over. You need to focus on your own life and your family. I'm not interested in returning to that chaos. Chloe, please, I'm begging you, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Theodore, no. I've found peace without you, and I'm not sacrificing that, I asserted, standing my ground. Take care, Theodore. I hope you find your path. Hanging up the phone, I felt a mix of relief and finality. It was evident Theodore was struggling, but I couldn't let his issues pull me back into a situation I had diligently extricated myself from. Later that day, I met Victoria for coffee and shared the news. You won't believe who called me today, I said, rolling my eyes.
Who?
Victoria inquired, arching an eyebrow. Theodore. He begged me to take him back and let him move into my apartment, I recounted, shaking my head. Victoria burst out laughing, nearly choking on her coffee. Are you serious? What did you say? I told him no, of course. I'm not going back to that mess, I replied, smiling. We spent the afternoon chatting and laughing, and I was struck by how much I had progressed. I had crafted a new life for myself, one of peace and satisfaction. I was determined not to let anyone disrupt it. As I walked home, a profound sense of contentment and closure washed over me. I had finally turned the page on that chapter of my life, ready to advance with confidence and happiness.
Greetings, I'm Felicity, a 35-year-old woman who recently went through a divorce. The end of my marriage came as a surprise, as I had believed it to be the happiest relationship of my life. Upon closer examination, I realized that our union was far from perfect, with various factors contributing to its demise. Allow me to recount our journey from the beginning. I first met Axel through a mutual friend, and our connection was immediate. Axel, an attractive man with a captivating personality, and I dated for a solid 3 years before deciding to tie the knot. Throughout our relationship, things generally went smoothly as we shared similar values and were accommodating to each other's needs. However, a significant issue arose with Axel's parents, Millie and Tiago, who proved to be challenging. The first encounter set the tone. Upon arriving at their home, I found only 3 plates set out for the 3 of them. Feeling confused and humiliated, I had to address the situation myself. Millie and Tiago continued to be unpleasant throughout dinner, with Axel remaining silent. Looking back, this incident should have served as an indicator of the challenges within our marriage. Despite enduring their disrespectful comments, Axel did not stand up for me or address the issue. After the uncomfortable evening, I gave him time to apologize, but he never approached me. Frustrated, I finally confronted him about the situation, initiating the conversation. I need to talk to you about what happened, I said. Axel's response was dismissive. I'm going to sleep, he claimed, accusing me of running away from things. In frustration, I confronted him about his lack of support, describing how he allowed his parents to mistreat me without speaking up. You could have simply asked them not to speak to me that way, I explained, keeping my voice calm but firm. Axel defended himself. I couldn't disrespect my parents in their own home. I'm not asking you to disrespect them, I responded, But did you ever consider giving me a heads up about how they were going to treat me? My parents are different, and speaking up might be seen as disrespectful, he said, still standing his ground. Are you really defending them? I pressed. They are your parents, but do you even feel any remorse for what I went through? To which he replied, can we not do this right now? I'm going to sleep. Good night. Axel left me standing there feeling hurt and upset. It was incredulous that he didn't seem to feel any remorse for what had happened. I hoped that his reaction was due to embarrassment, but as I went to bed, I felt a sense of emptiness. The next morning, Axel acted like everything was fine, which initially peeved me. I haven't spoken to him for about a week, holding back my anger, waiting for him to apologize. However, that apology never came. Realizing it wasn't a hill I was willing to die on, I didn't want to jeopardize my relationship with Axel over this issue. I began talking to him again, doing my best to put his parents' behavior and his neglect behind me. Although unspoken, we never visited Millie and Tiago again or made any effort to meet them. The next encounter was at our wedding, where I actively avoided them. I eventually had to interact with them when they congratulated us at the reception. Millie and Tiago inquired about our honeymoon plans. When we mentioned Hawaii, they suggested an overseas destination, offering to fund it under the condition that they join us. While the idea sounded appealing, their choice of Paris wasn't to my liking. In an attempt to have some time alone, I excused myself to the washroom, feeling discontent with the situation. Isn't a honeymoon all about creating special moments together? While Hawaii wasn't Paris, it was still a beautiful place I'd always wanted to visit. What bothered me was that Axel decided, without even discussing it with me. I tried to let go of my feelings and enjoy the night, but the mood had soured for me. I endured the rest of the reception and the ride home with Axel in silence, drained of energy and unable to articulate my upset feelings. The next morning, I still felt uneasy, so I decided to talk to Axel about it. I want to talk about the honeymoon, I began. I'm not concerned about where to hold it, but rather that we didn't discuss it together. Axel defended his decision. My parents made a fantastic offer, and Paris is a dream destination, he explained. I'm not rejecting the opportunity, I explained, frustrated. But this is about us, our honeymoon. It's supposed to be a shared decision. Stop overthinking it and ruining this opportunity, Axel dismissed my concerns. Hurt by his response, I reluctantly agreed to go along, suppressing my reservations. The vacation was scheduled a month after our wedding. When the day arrived, we met Millie and Tiago at the airport, and they greeted me with unexpected friendliness. Initially caught off guard, I closed myself off as I felt a shift in their behavior. While they were nice for the first week in Italy, they gradually reverted to their old ways. They began making fun of my attire, questioning the intelligence of my clothing choices. Some days, they deliberately excluded me from their plans to fancy places, deeming my clothes embarrassing. This behavior continued, leaving me feeling increasingly isolated as we still had 3 weeks left in the vacation. I dressed modestly and even received compliments from a few Italian people we encountered. However, for no apparent reason, they began excluding me. They would take Axel along without informing me, leaving me alone at the hotel for extended periods. Then came the comments about my weight and food choices. If I ordered anything other than a salad, Millie would make jabs at me while indulging in steak herself. Throughout it all, Axel remained silent, sometimes holding back laughter. I grew increasingly eager to return home, counting down the days until our departure. Spending time with Axel and his parents became unbearable, with his parents relentlessly bullying me while he ignored everything. I knew I had to address this with Axel later, but every attempt to talk to him had been met with indifference or avoidance. On our last day, I took the initiative to organize our passports and tickets together. When I asked Axel about my tickets, he claimed he didn't have them. Although it struck me as odd that Millie and Tiago hadn't given me my ticket, the strangeness of the situation didn't register due to the challenges of the vacation. Frustrated, I approached Millie and Tiago's room and confronted Millie about the departure. Axel, Tiago, and I are leaving in 3 hours, Millie said casually, as if she had forgotten something minor. Shocked, I asked, What about my ticket? Oh, we forgot to buy it, Millie said dismissively. How could you forget something so crucial? I questioned, upset. Millie waved me off. We'll buy it separately. Unconvinced, I expressed my frustration at being constantly pushed aside and told Axel that he couldn't keep supporting them. Handle it yourself, Millie insisted when I sought assistance in resolving the ticket issue, exacerbating the already tense situation. Axel, torn between his loyalty to his parents and his relationship, was left with no clear solution. They decided he would accompany them to Turkey, leaving me to navigate my way home alone. The news left me utterly shocked. As Axel and I left their room, I repeatedly pleaded with him, "Please, Axel, don't leave me alone." But he looked away in embarrassment. My parents funded this trip from their retirement savings, Axel explained, his voice filled with unease. I can't disrespect them. Despite my appalled feelings, I couldn't help but think about how his parents were disrespecting his wife. Tears welled up as I watched Axel pack his bags. He barely looked at me, offered no apologies, and didn't even suggest covering my ticket back. Though tempted to create a scene, I felt humiliated enough. When the time came to leave, Axel walked away with his head down, and Millie and Tiago waved me goodbye, their smiles too gleeful to be sincere. I was furious, fuming, and stuck alone in a foreign country. Axel didn't stay back with me, compounding my anger. I had endured their behavior and remarks for the entire month, and tolerated Axel's silence. But I had reached my limit. Revenge became a compelling necessity, and I knew exactly how to achieve it. Upon discovering that Axel's financial stability came after his parents' retirement, who had an assumable mortgage, I saw an opportunity. They had transferred the mortgage to Axel when he became financially stable. Now drowning in debt with the house on the brink of foreclosure, Axel had nominated me as the next owner, considering my higher income and excellent credit. I contacted my best friend Abby, whose husband Max specialized in property law. "Abby, I need your help," I confessed. "I've been paying off the mortgage since Axel nominated me, but now I need a plan." Through a conference FaceTime call, we worked out a plan. Max detailed, "You've been solely responsible for the payments, right? We'll transfer the house to your name." Upon the transfer of the mortgage, Axel stopped contributing, which I initially accepted, thinking it was time for him to enjoy some financial comfort. However, after 7 months without any contribution from him, I confronted him about his neglect. "Axel, you haven't paid a cent in months. What's going on?" I demanded. He scoffed. "Are you jealous of my lifestyle? You knew I needed a break." I realized it was time to take matters into my own hands. Before taking on the mortgage payments, I had a life, and in hindsight, I should have recognized that as a potential red flag about Axel's character as a husband. Speaking to Abby's husband, Max, shed light on the questionable and borderline insane aspects of my relationship with Axel. "I can't believe you didn't see through him sooner," Max remarked, his voice thick with disbelief. "I was in love," I admitted quietly. "I thought he could do no wrong." Max's voice grew stern. "This is insane. He's using you to pay off his home. You need to act now." "What should I do?" I asked, my desperation clear. "We can easily transfer the house into your name," Max assured. "You've been making payments for over a year. Let's contact the bank and get Axel's name off this. I'll prepare the legalities and even the eviction notice." Grateful for their support, I promised to be more vigilant in the future. Knowing Axel and his parents had a 35-hour layover in Turkey, I planned my move strategically. They intended to stay at the airport hotel in Istanbul, and while initially I was excited to be part of the trip, I now saw it as an opportunity to serve them with an eviction notice before their return. I booked a flight home, fortunate to secure one in a couple of hours. Throughout the journey, I was a crying mess, grappling with the realization of the state my life had come to. Despite having loved Axel with all my heart, he never called to check on me. The satisfaction of evicting them from their own house briefly consoled me. I wondered about their predicament, realizing the 3 of them would have to cram into Axel and my apartment, which was ending its lease next month. However, I quickly dismissed any sympathy, remembering they had abandoned me without considering how I would return home. If they could treat me that way, I had no qualms about taking decisive action. Without a shred of guilt, I embarked on my plan for revenge as soon as I landed back home. Checking Axel and his parents' flight status, I learned they were departing in about 3 hours. Running on adrenaline and fueled by determination, I drove straight to Millie and Tiago's house. Upon arriving at the place, I used the spare key hidden under the doormat. After entering and looking around, I was overwhelmed with a strong desire to evict my in-laws from their house as soon as possible. I began putting my plan into action. My next move was to find the best divorce lawyer in my vicinity and initiate proceedings. I contacted Abby, and she and Max came over, providing support as I signed paperwork to remove Axel's name from ownership and finalize the eviction notice. "You've got this," Abby said, squeezing my hand. "We're with you every step of the way," Max added. Seeing my friends brought forth the emotions I had been suppressing since landing. Returning to a place filled with reminders of Axel was challenging, but Abby and Max were there for me, letting me release my pent-up feelings. After they left, I checked Axel's flight and saw they still had 4 hours until landing. Wanting to appear composed, I took some time to sleep, managing to rest for about 2 hours. Upon waking up, I swiftly got ready and went to the divorce attorney's office to collect the divorce papers. Upon my return, I had about an hour before Axel and his parents were due back. My heart pounded as their return approached, but I knew I had to remain strong. When they arrived, Axel looked at me in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice laced with confusion. "This is my house now," I stated firmly. "I've been paying the mortgage for the past year. You all need to leave," Millie gasped. "What do you mean, my house?" Axel said he was handling everything. I crossed my arms, unwavering. "No, he nominated me as the owner. He hasn't contributed a dime. I've been handling everything and now I want you all out." Axel, caught off guard, tried to shift the blame. "I thought," he began. "You thought wrong," I interrupted. "This is over, Axel. I've already excluded your name from the property. You need to go." All three of them gawked at me in astonishment, attempting to plead their case. "You can't do this," Tiago protested. I sternly conveyed my intolerance. "You have to leave. I'll call the police if you resist." Just before their departure, I handed Axel the divorce papers. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," I said coldly. "I won't be with someone who exploited me for personal gain and didn't stand by me when I needed you most." Axel, now desperate, tried to apologize. "Please don't do this. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." I shook my head. "No, Axel, it's too late." Witnessing their departure filled me with a sense of satisfaction. Although the healing process from the hurt and betrayal would take time, I had regained control of my circumstances. I refused to let the actions of Axel and his parents define or affect me, an achievement I considered the ultimate victory. In the months that followed, Axel attempted to contest the divorce, but soon withdrew upon realizing the financial burden it would entail. The last I heard of their situation, they had sought refuge with relatives until they could secure an affordable place. Millie and Tiago swiftly returned to employment to sustain themselves. While it was disheartening to witness their struggles, it served as a lesson derived from meddling with the person who had previously extended a helping hand. Since parting ways with them, my life has been imbued with greater happiness. Although occasional memories of their actions resurface, I find solace in the satisfaction derived from my retaliatory actions. We kept the conversation going for a bit longer, but the cheerful expressions gradually left both my husband and my mother-in-law. "Hadley, are you all right?" my husband asked, his voice tense and impatient. "What?" I asked, perplexed. "No, it's nothing," my husband replied in confusion. Obviously, he must have plotted something. Then my mother-in-law suddenly stood up, clutching her stomach. "Ouch! Ooh!" she moaned. My mother-in-law rushed into the bathroom, her face pale with pain. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" my husband yelled, panic creeping into his voice. "Why do I have this much pain in my stomach?" she gasped, doubled over in agony. "This can't be." My husband's face twisted in shock. "Hadley, you didn't switch the tea, did you?" he asked, surprised. "I did," I answered coldly, meeting his gaze. "I swapped mine with your mother's." His expression darkened with disbelief. What? Why did you do that? I shrugged, unbothered, and uttered, "What's wrong if I switched? My name is Hadley. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. My husband Beau and I have been married for 2 years. We met through work. My current husband is a mid-career hire from a client I was working for. At first, he was new to the company and didn't seem to be getting used to the job. But the next time I met him, he seemed to have gotten the hang of things. I thought he was a smart man. Eventually, we got closer and we started going out on dates and for dinners. He confessed his feelings for me, and we were officially dating. After that, our relationship went smoothly. He proposed and we got married. I thought our newlywed life was going very well. My husband is not a good cook, so I was always cooking. In return, he did the cleaning and laundry. He also took the initiative in taking out the garbage, which was really helpful. But recently, he's been acting differently. Or rather, his attitude towards me has changed. He used to follow me everywhere I went and always wanted attention when we were home. I had to tell him to be patient with me, as if I were training a puppy. But nowadays, he barely shows affection. He used to speak to me in a sweet voice, but lately he's been rather cold. "What's for dinner?" he asked, his tone flat. "It's hamburger, your favorite," I responded. "Okay," he muttered, not even glancing up. That was it, no reaction. I had gone through the trouble of making it just for him, but even after that, his response was cold. It's as if he's not interested in me anymore. He was so kind in the beginning. I hope one day he'll be kind to me again. And it's not just my husband. There's someone else bothering me. My mother-in-law. She's been picking on me since the beginning of our marriage. "Hey Hadley," she said sharply. "Why didn't you prepare any snacks?" I sighed. "I'm sorry, but you came over unannounced." "Normally you'd expect it and have it ready," she snapped, glaring at me. "That's impossible," I muttered under my breath. Until now, my husband had always taken my side, even talked back to my mother-in-law. But lately, he's joined her in attacking me. "I really don't think Hadley is considerate enough, do you?" my mother-in-law said, his tone casual as if it were nothing. "It's a wife's duty to be prepared whenever my mother comes over," he uttered with an air of superiority. "You never know when I'm going to leave you if you keep this up." Threats of divorce. I couldn't believe it. He wasn't like this before. I felt a mixture of sadness and still wanting to trust him. But then, the unthinkable happened. One weekend, my mother-in-law came over again. For some reason, she brought tea and sweets. She was unusually cheerful that day, her eyes gleaming as she handed me an expensive-looking tea set. "I went out of my way to buy the finest tea I could find today," she said, her voice too sweet. "Let's drink it together." Something about her kindness set off alarm bells. Why was she suddenly being so nice? It's like there's some kind of malice in it. "Thank you, Mother. I'll make the tea today," my husband said with an odd smile, taking the tea to the kitchen. Lately he's been barking orders at me. "Hurry up and prepare the table. My mother is waiting," he snapped, watching me closely. Why is he being so nice today? I wondered, feeling a growing sense of unease. When he brought me a cup of tea, there was a gleam in his eye, a grain of something sinister in his smile. "Wow, it smells so good," my mother-in-law said, leaning in to sniff the tea. I hesitated, smelling it myself. It seemed like regular tea, but there were bubbles. Strange, floating bubbles. This is definitely not good. I needed to replace my tea. Fast. "Oh, mother-in-law," I exclaimed, feigning excitement. "Your favorite singer was on a music show the other night. I recorded it for you. Do you want to watch it?" I suggested. Her eyes lit up. "Oh, really? I'll watch it right away," she exclaimed enthusiastically. As she reached for the remote, she paused. "Aren't there any snacks? You made tea but forgot the snacks," my mother-in-law remarked. "I was just about to get them," my husband said, irritated as he stood up to fetch plates and snacks. That was my chance. The moment they both turned away, I switched my tea with my mother-in-law's. When they came back to the table, we all sat down again. "Well, let's have some tea, shall we?" my husband said, the grin back on his face. "It's a fine cup of tea, isn't it?" my mother-in-law added, taking a sip with a knowing smirk. I sipped the tea as they watched me, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. "It certainly tastes different from usual," I remarked casually. They both chuckled. I know, my husband said smugly. It's different. Yeah, it's delicious, I said, playing along as I drank it all. They laughed loudly, pleased with themselves. But soon the smiles began to fade. My mother-in-law's face twisted in pain. Ouch! Oh, she gasped, holding her stomach again. My husband looked alarmed. Mom, what's wrong? I don't know, she groaned, her face pale. My stomach, it hurts so much. She was terrified. Hadley, you didn't switch the tea, did you? My husband's voice wavered, eyes wide. I did, I said firmly, locking eyes with him. He blanched. Why did you do that? He exclaimed angrily. What's wrong if I switched? I asked in confusion. His face contorted with panic. Does that mean there was something bad in the tea you served me? I asked dazedly. No, it's just that, he answered, stuttering. Tell me the truth, Beau, I firmly insisted. He swallowed hard. Otherwise you won't be able to handle it and your mother will be in danger, I added. His face fell. I had planted a large amount of powdered laxative in your tea, he finally confessed. What? I hissed and added. Of course she'd get an upset stomach, and in large quantities it could be fatal. Call an ambulance, I ordered, my heart pounding. Oh, okay, he stammered, rushing to dial the number. That's how my mother-in-law ended up being carried away in an ambulance, with my husband beside her, panicked and remorseful. Meanwhile, I took the tea my husband had laced with laxatives, poured it into a bottle, and saved it as evidence. I'm going to the police to file a report. While they were at the hospital, I packed my belongings and called my parents. I moved out that very day. When I arrived at my parents' house, my phone rang. It was my husband. My mom is in danger. She's in pretty bad shape. She has to stay in the hospital for a few days. I need you to bring her a change of clothes and... I didn't let him finish. Huh? What are you talking about? I replied angrily. I don't want anything to do with you. Hey, you can't do this. My mom's in trouble. You're my wife. You should at least do that, he demanded, his voice rising. I can't be with you anymore, I continued firmly. I'm divorcing you. When I said the word divorce, my husband was silent for a moment, then said, I see. If you insist on divorcing me, then I don't have a choice. But you're the one who asked for the divorce, so you don't get a share of the property, Beau threatened me. What are you talking about? I replied, outraged. You're the one who caused the divorce, so I'll take what I can get, he scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not paying you a dime. The divorce was your idea. It's not my fault, my husband insisted. I'm disgusted, I said, my voice trembling with anger. You tried to force me to drink a cup of laxative tea in the first place. How can you think you're not at fault? Before I could mention the bigger weapon I had against him, he hung up. I thought about it for a moment, but decided to let it go for now. I had too many things to do, like arranging for a lawyer. A few days later, my husband asked, Why is your stuff missing from the house? The house is falling apart because you don't do the chores. Beau rebuked me. I received a slew of unreasonable and selfish messages from him. You're willing to divorce me, aren't you? Do you understand you'll have to take care of the house by yourself once we are divorced? He smirked. I wanted to explain so many things, but I didn't respond until after I had arranged for a lawyer. Then my mother-in-law got out of the hospital, and my husband, along with his in-laws, came to my parents' house. My husband, already in a foul mood, said, Divorce is not an option, but I'll comply. You didn't even visit my mother after she was hospitalized. You just walked out of her house, taking your belongings. How can I stay married to a woman like that? He spoke arrogantly, while my mother-in-law shot me nasty looks. I could tell that they had only told their side of the story to my father-in-law, and he believed them. Hadley, I think you're being a little selfish, my father-in-law said, though I knew he wasn't fully informed. I pulled out my phone and played an audio clip. In the recording, my husband's voice was clear. I had actually planted a large amount of powdered laxative in Hadley's tea. The audio was solid evidence. The moment they heard it, both my husband and mother-in-law turned pale. My husband had dug his own grave. How did that conversation come about? My father-in-law asked. Father, I felt was in danger. I quickly replaced mother-in-law's tea with my own. I explained, trying to keep calm. She has always bullied me, and my husband used to be angry at her for that. But lately, they've been teaming up against me. And then he crossed the line, I concluded. My father-in-law's face turned furious. He glared at my husband and mother-in-law. Bo, what's going on? Is it true you were bullying her too? My husband stammered. No, wait, Dad. It was just for fun. Hadley got sick to her stomach, but I was only planting laxatives as a fun surprise, you know? I wasn't bullying her. Neither was Mom. We were just joking around. My husband tried to justify himself. You call that a joke? My father-in-law asked, his voice cold. I don't care how much you think it's a joke. Don't think you can get away like that forever, I retorted. This is why Bo has been so horrible to me, isn't it? I pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table. Here's photographic evidence of the affair you've been having. I got this from the detective I hired, I continued. My husband's face went white as a sheet. Why? How did you... You really thought I didn't know? Your cold attitude made me suspicious. I hired an investigator, and it turns out you were actually cheating on me. You were probably just trying to get me to file for divorce, weren't you? I concluded. He began to break out in a cold sweat. I pushed the divorce papers toward him. No matter how foolish you are, if you're confronted with divorce papers in this situation, you know you're at a disadvantage, don't you? I'll get alimony and a fair share of the property, I added. My husband tried to argue, but I cut him off. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to report you for assault, for planting the laxatives. The police! My mother-in-law panicked. Wait, don't you feel sorry for Bo? She exclaimed, defending her son. Huh? Why would I feel sorry? I snapped. It's not just my husband. Your mother-in-law are just as guilty. He was cooperating with you, I accused her. Huh? Why am I the one being blamed? My mother-in-law protested. It was Bo who planted the laxatives. She tried to distance herself. Mom, you came up with this whole plan, Bo shot back. Don't try to pin this on me. You asked me to help you because you found a new potential wife, my mother-in-law yelled, and the two of them started fighting, throwing accusations at each other. Finally, my father-in-law had enough. Enough, he snapped, his voice thundering through the room. You both committed a crime. Accept responsibility. And Bo, you need to take responsibility for the affair. Pay Hadley the alimony she deserves, and she'll get a share of the property, he concluded. Both my husband and mother-in-law were petrified by his anger. I was glad my father-in-law intervened, because my father was about to lose his temper as well. Let's handle the rest through lawyers, I said calmly. I handed my husband the divorce papers again. Sign them, I demanded. He hesitated, but my father-in-law shouted, Sign them. Bo finally relented and signed. I'm truly sorry for the trouble my foolish son and wife have caused you, my father-in-law said to me, deeply apologetic. He took Bo and my mother-in-law home. Afterward, I filed for alimony through my lawyer and received $30,000 each from my ex-husband and his mistress. I also filed a police report against my ex-husband and mother-in-law for assault. With the audio evidence and the laxative tea, they were both arrested and fined. My father-in-law was so disgusted by my mother-in-law that he divorced her, leaving her to work part-time to pay the fine. She couldn't rely on her own son, as they were now at odds with each other. My ex-husband's mistress, angry that he lied about their future, also left him. He ended up borrowing money to pay her off, and was left with a mountain of debt. In the end, I got my share of the property and moved into my own apartment. Recently, I was promoted at work, and I'm thinking of taking a celebratory trip with friends or family. It's a crime to make someone drink tea with laxatives. It's not a joke. My ex-husband and mother-in-law deserve whatever punishment they get. At least my father-in-law turned out to be a wonderful person, and I hope that in the future I will be able to meet a worthy life partner.